Hello. Now, today's video is a video about energy. Now, genuinely, and you may feel called out by this video, most people's experience with energy is just with the kind of energy that they feel from emotions, whether it be theirs, other people's, or the energy that it um, that it takes to produce emotions, and sometimes the energy that it takes to experience certain emotions. Well, not really experience, more like go through it, which is different from experience. Going through it is more like you becoming it, I am angry, and you go through the process of whatever it's like whenever you act out your anger, however it is, you know, especially like just whenever it starts to take all of its physiological symptoms, like, your blood pressure raises, your pulse raises, cortisol raises, all these other things, perhaps adrenaline, right? All these different things, but also what it actually takes to go through the emotions like that on an energetic level. It actually takes energy rather than giving you energy. Now, when you're going through it, it feels like it gives you a tremendous amount of energy, but you realize right after you probably feel exhausted. Yeah, because it took a lot of energy to go through something like that. Now, to experience it, you would just experience the anger without going through it. So you're not attaching yourself to it at all. And you may go through it, and you may go through it in the same sense that what you're doing and what another person is doing is the same thing, except you're just kind of like gliding through it, not getting caught in anything, while the other person's getting caught in absolutely everything, or a lot, or even just a few things, or even one thing. Could even just be one thing, actually. Usually when it's one thing, you're very obsessive about that one particular thing. Sound familiar? That's what it's like with your twin flame. Now, I want to be very clear. There is an actual experience where a person can meet another person, and it is their twin flame. Then there's certain um, characteristics, specific characteristics, whenever it comes to an experience like that. But it's not just that you met someone and that you liked them and that you feel very strongly towards them. It's not what I'm talking about. This kind of thing is like this experience, this kind of an experience with energy is basically there's things that are happening that are beyond your conscious awareness, yet you're aware that it's clearly happening. So it's like you and this person have a very clear and strong energy transference, but it's not like in a back and forth necessarily, because everybody has a back and forth. But it's like you guys are both living in in the same energetic space, and that all of the energy that's happening with them and the energy that's happening with you is happening in a space that you both can experience each other's energy, no matter how crazy or how blissful it is, no matter what it's like. You experience each other's energy very clearly. You're thinking about each other all the time. You're probably very sexually attracted to one another. um, you love each other, honestly, but one of you is going to be reacting to it probably very differently. But if you are acting the same towards it, which means to some extent you're being both avoidant, you're probably going to get to a point where you experience that particular journey, which you chose, but it's not quite the choice that you thought. It's a choice that you chose, but your ego doesn't really understand it if it feels put upon. And that's kind of part of it. It's like you may reject the experience, which would be like you not accepting basically everything that's being asked of you. Not just asked of you to relinquish, but asked of you to actually do. Or, on another level, if you are entirely unsatisfied with the person then, and you maybe you even like, oh, I'll do it myself, or I want somebody else, right? Like, but if it was such that even if you did get somebody else, you're still with this other person in so many other ways, right? If it's like that, then it's like it's really a twin flame. If it's not, then it's not. But also, what happens with a twin flame is instantly it starts a spiritual awakening by activating your kundalini. That's it. That's all it does. Now, the actual consciousness journey is something you have to make on your own, but most people don't, because it causes them a lot of pain. And I understand that. But where it is that they get stuck is literally at the lowest totem. And if they don't get stuck at the lowest totem, then they get stuck at the second one. Very few make it to the third, truly who make it to the third, but people who fail to do the first and the second, they know that the third is the next logical step. And so what they do is they try to do things. So their ego immediately latches onto it at that point when they realize, oh, it's not going to work with them. Their ego immediately latches onto something and tries to become someone. And maybe even before then, before the point where it sees, even before to do with the person, maybe even way, way sooner than that, maybe even immediately, almost immediately, their ego latches onto something and tries to be something and someone in the world, usually to make a lot of money and being very well known. Now, making a lot of money and being well known is different, isn't necessarily the same as what it is that I'm talking about, but this kind of person will be likely trying to do so many such things to like manifest, and have certain other powers, often not really getting them, but it working sometimes to some extent. Like I'd say the best that most people will really be able to do is be able to manifest something, basically. But and that's basically where most of you are now. So I don't want you all to feel called out by this. I want you to just hear that I know exactly where you are. I know your plight, and I know how to get you to the other side if you want. Most people don't want to do it because they either perceive it as either boring, or which is usually just cope for them saying that it's way too difficult, and that they don't even, and it's way too difficult, and it doesn't seem like they get anything in return. Like in terms of manifesting, like, oh, you do something, you get something out of it. Spiritually speaking, that's what people want, but that's not how spirituality works, and so they feel absolutely no, they feel, but this is all ego, by the way. Like, this is all ego, but they feel as though, because some egos aren't like this. Mine wasn't like this, but mine was oriented towards wanting to know the truth and then wanting to help other people. That's pretty much it. I've looked like a fool for most of my life for actually doing a lot of that sort of thing, because I didn't do as Jesus said and seek the kingdom of heaven, even though it was within my reach, and I always knew that, and it really wouldn't take very much, even for a lot of people. I think for me it takes a little bit less than the average person, just probably because of what I went through in previous lifetimes. And I can clearly see that, and other people can clearly see that too, but for my whole life I didn't understand it. I felt put upon why I feel different, why I get treated different, why people look at me in a certain way, but also at the same time, the way that I've seen life and seen other people has never been with any amount of hate, disdain, judgment, or anything like that. It's been like more like of, how do I get what's in my mind to clearly be communicated to other people, and I guess to a large extent, I had to really get acquainted with what was coming into my mind, and especially where it was coming from. And when I say my mind, one of the most fundamental parts of this is like, so many people like to talk about, oh, awaken this and awaken that, but and I get it to some extent, but to another degree, it's like there's a certain perspective that you have that you just lose when there's no ego. So, like, even very highly respected people in many circles, basically, are very, very egotistical people, actually. But it's not the kind of egotism that you'd expect. It's just from the perspective of an ego, they seem like a very, you know, awake, aware, perhaps even enlightened. But I'll say that there's such a thing as an awakened and an enlightened ego. Actually, like in some sense, there's an awakened and an enlightened ego, but it's also possible for someone to experience a very deep awakening and for it to shine through very deeply through their ego, but for that person themselves not to be self-realized. And that's the case with, I have one particular person in mind where that is very clearly the case. And I've always been perplexed by why people, you know, come to him and feel the need to listen to what it is that he has to say, even though he says the same thing only all the time. Like, he has exactly the same answer for every single thing. But there isn't just one answer. There's many answers at many different levels, you know? But there are answers, And it's not the kind of answers that you can just find necessarily Googling. I mean, perhaps you can, but most won't recognize it. And even if they did, they wouldn't know what to do with it. But it's like, basically, it's like this. Most of what you see out there is complete bunk, nonsense, garbage. And if you really want to know, you have to go to the source. Now, the source is not me, but in a manner of speaking, I know the best methods for you to help connect you to that source. But there's a whole process, okay, that it needs to be handled in a very specific way, especially if you met your twin flame, because your kundalini has been like shock activated, and especially if you've met your twin flame. Honestly, it's like, it's pretty, like, where I am now is not a place you get to at all accidentally. And let me show you how to get there. Okay? Let me show you, if you're willing. But, if you'd like to work with me towards your highest betterment, on the about section of my channel is my email. Shoot me your Discord name through to that email so that we can start a back and forth for now. Okay? In the near future, I'm going to be finishing my website, which will be hosting all of my content, and perhaps content of other people also. But that's in the future, hopefully. Anyway, bye for now.